Ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished guest, I would like to welcome you all to Young Muslim Women Summit. I am Ayça Aydoğdu, international news presenter at TRT World, and I will be your moderator and host for today. And on behalf of our host, the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum, the Economic and Council Youth Forum, ECOSOC, all partners from around the world, and with the friendly support of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Turkey, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all, especially you women, who are among us today trying to make a change, whether it is in politics or science, humanitarian or arts or sports, it does not matter. What matters is you are raising your voice and leading a great example and inspiration to all young women out there. The COVID-19 pandemic has taught us something undeniable. Leadership diversity makes a difference, and the response of countries led by women have captured the headlines. Unfortunately, we cannot deny the lack of women at the table where decisions are made. The aim here today, women as the emerging power of the 21st century, will enrich discussions and interaction among successful women of different cultural backgrounds to take part in global and local actions and solutions to socioeconomic problems and challenges. Videos we watched, we will address them shortly in the roundtable discussion. But first of all, let's hear the opening remarks. And of course, ladies first today, especially. I'm delighted to welcome economist Dr. Linda Rama, who is a long-time activist on human rights and women's rights, and the wife of the Prime Minister of Albania, to give us her welcoming remarks. The floor is yours.
Greetings, everyone. While I regret us having to hold this beautiful communication at a distance, it still remains an extraordinary event for which the hosts deserve gratitude and admiration. Leadership, woman, world, competition are words that stand on a common ground, that of century-long battles to attain most of what our grandmothers and great-grandmothers could not even imagine to be within reach, but also that of the future challenges that are the battles of today. In this remarkable endeavor that goes on, COVID-19 will trigger for long our memory and reflections as the time that most prominently showed the power of women in the world of labor. Many are those heroic women who during this pandemic have been working in hospitals and healthcare centers, who care for and vaccinate innumerable people each day, who work to manufacture vaccines and other medicine, who study, research, and comment at the forefront of this war, enlightening the path ahead of us. A brilliant example of that is BioNTech co-founder Madame Özlem Türeci, to whom the entire world is indebted for saving millions of lives. But there is also an army of teachers out there who, under new and utterly challenging conditions, have managed with admirable dedication to keep the stream of knowledge flowing for our children. Even more are the women who, for longer than a year now, keep the work chain rolling in the face of the chain of infections that defies us daily, threatening the very continuity of our livelihood. These are the fighting women in the times of COVID, an army of heroes the world will always remember. One of the things that struck me from the invitation was also the obvious. Hundreds of well-educated girls and women with academic titles and degrees from more than 45 world countries, and equally as many representatives from civic activism. Allow me to extend to each and every one of you the expression of my admiration and respect for who you are, what you do, and radiate around you, making the world a better place thanks to your presence and contribution. I come from a Muslim family. I am married to Eddie, who is Catholic. Our 2 children from previous marriages are Christian Orthodox. And the third, our 6-year-old boy, will decide for himself the religion he will belong to should he wish to make such a choice one day. This is, as a matter of fact, Albania, the country of interfaith harmony which we, Albanians, take pride in. This is why at home we have the sacred books of Bible and Quran, where one will read the same commandment that whoever saves a life has saved the entire mankind. Destiny led us to see during this COVID year not one, but an entire army of people striving to save mankind, with women at its forefront. I am an economist, but that is not the prevailing instinct in me. There is a much powerful instinct that lies inside, the instinct of the mother and the woman, whose interests reach beyond herself and family to matters of public interest, and the constant urge to find ways of being useful therein. In my view, the model of a professionally successful woman is very important, but never sufficient. In that frontline battle with COVID to save lives, the first to prevail is the instinct of the mother, daughter and woman that comes before the professionalism of medical doctors, nurses, orderlies, teachers, entrepreneurs, scientists. In this grueling fight, that is the instinct that keeps them going and does not let them give in, give up. As we speak, Albania is avant-garde in terms of its gender representation track record, scoring 9 points above the European average when it comes to women involvement in the highest level of public decision-making. It matches the European average regarding the ratio of women in parliament. It has more women than men in the government cabinet, a public administration with more than 60% women, and women who are at the helm of justice institutions, judges and prosecutors, and certainly an increasing number of successful role models of women in business or at the top of private management. However, while cherishing of women climbing their way to the top of the public and private decision-making, there are tens of thousands of other women who expect to see at the pinnacle of power an activist, not a bureaucrat. Just like those heroic women fighting the pandemic, they expect that these women sitting at the top of power or at the highest throne of professionalism and entrepreneurship find prevailing within the instinct of the mother and woman who, in a competitive world, fights for justice, rejects aggressiveness, condemns violence, blazes the trail of opportunities for others, heals wounds, reaches out, inspires, motivates, and gives unwavering support. We are right to feel good and hopeful today as we see more women ministers, judges, prosecutors, managers, top administrators, and entrepreneurs. But such a presence will only remain another statistic that time will cast into oblivion unless it is made into a mission to influence the pending solutions to the issues facing thousands of women and girls who go through violence, sexual harassment in the workplace or public spaces, who face prejudice that keeps them from pursuing their passions, poor working conditions, lack of education and employment, poverty. Women will fully succeed only when, above any power, lies the power of values and profound human feelings. So, dear girls and women, economists, lawyers, medical doctors, engineers, experts of all fields, I'm confident that when tomorrow you will strive for your own success and persevere, you will be faced with challenges that are not easy. You will climb the highest peaks in your career as a reward to your labors and the support given to you by your families. But remember that the sacrifices of generations require that in all your efforts you first invoke the instinct of the mother and the woman who would give the post-pandemic world her modesty, self-restraint, self-control, departing from self-centeredness and vanity, offering her discipline, generosity, and the feeling of community, all values that the Quran urges you to pursue so that you may be successful. The post-pandemic world will be a place in need for more communication, a better balance of the challenges, heightened attention to the plethora of problems, enhanced social responsibility for those who are vulnerable, more affection, more kindness, more sensitivity towards the environment, and clearly, less greed and confrontation to secure power. You understand better than anyone the value of this ayah in the Quran, and do not crave that Allah has given some of you over others. Men will be rewarded according to their deeds, and women equally according to theirs. There is a myth as old as the world that war is a man's game. The army of women in the forefront of the battle with COVID testifies that women are strong fighters and always victorious. I wish you success for this summit, and thank you very much for your attention.
Her Excellencies, Dr. Linda Rama, thank you very much. That is a beautiful and inspiring speech, a lot to take from there. One word I do take is we all women share something common, which is empathy, which is what is needed in the world today as we face a global problem such as the pandemic. And but I will give the floor to two men, of course, because we do need men among us to actually make that change happen with us, I believe, as there is a lack of place at the table where decisions are made for women. And so we need men to speak up to other men to set an example to get women involved. So next to give their remarks, I invite Taha Han, our host, President of the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum, to share a few words and enlighten us on this initiative.
Thank you very much, dear Aisha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear Excellencies, His Excellency Selim Kram Bey, Her Excellency Emine Cebbar Bey, the First Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Her Excellency Merve Kavakçıhanım, Ambassador of the Republic of Turkey to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and Her Excellency Linda Rama, the spouse of the Prime Minister of Albania, and I'm very thankful for her remarks and for her participation to our event. And Melek El Nimer Hanım, Ayşe Yusuf Hanım, and all the distinguished guests, delegates, and representatives from various organizations, all our participants joining us today. I welcome you all to this important occasion as we embark together on a journey to women empowerment at a time when we face increasing amounts of insecurity and uncertainty as a result of pandemic beside so many challenges. I would like first to extend my sincere gratitude to all those involved in making this event reality. I wish this program could be held on the ground, but I believe we will reach more people through online as well. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, and dear participants, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected our communities and systems in much deeper levels and continue to challenge our commitment, approaches, and values. To overcome those conditions, it is necessary to draw much closer, rethink approaches and strategies to development, and invest in developing much more resilient understanding, dialogue, and cooperation if we were to overcome current and possible future crises, and also to build a sustainable tomorrow which assures fairness, inclusion, and equal opportunities. And also, honestly, I want to underline that the COVID-19 pandemic has created a new layer of problems and challenges upon the already existing ones. Your Excellencies and distinguished guests, women and young women continue to demonstrate outstanding work. Their growing leadership, whether in governance, diplomacy, or social and political change, is just outstanding, especially when we understand the various complex challenges surrounding their contribution. We all witness incredible women role models for their communities. They truly provide inspiration across their countries, regions, in the OIC and beyond. Today, women continue to pave the path for many others. Women, men, girls, and boys to follow in their footsteps and become true future leaders. And I'm very thankful in behalf of the humanity. Those women continue to make their voices heard, whether at the local, national, and international levels. And many of those are involved in many policy and programs making in all fields of education, development, and sustainability. In spite of those outstanding achievements, we cannot ignore that there are complex problems and challenges facing young women on their way to accomplish their goals and enjoy better lives. Empowering young women and prospective female leaders to our top priority as we work together to translate into reality the 17 Global Sustainable Development Goals in the OIC region and beyond. However, in the context of the post-COVID, we need more concerted efforts to accommodate, support, and encourage women leadership across all domains, sectors, and industries to systematically resolve many of their problems of poverty, inequality, discrimination, marginalization, victimization, and violence, inaccessibility of existing services and resources and education, and their social isolation. These barriers put marginalized women at greater risk, unfortunately. Women are the heartbeat of every community and should be able to play their leadership role for our communities and world to survive and prosper. And to overcome the complex effects of post-COVID-19, women should demonstrate more leadership and be at the forefront of shaping and driving the agenda of sustainability. Your Excellencies, dear participants, let us work together in favor of supporting and institutionalizing the women leadership. Let us continue to inspire and motivate young women to fully realize their potential and translate their dreams and ambitions. Now it is the right time to plan and work for a brighter future. They say failing to prepare is preparing to fail. As long as we work together and support one another and treat each other with respect, trust, dignity, and believe in our capabilities, we shall not only overcome all problems and obstacles, but shape a much better human world of peace, justice, and prosperity. Before I close, I would like to express my sincere gratitude once again on behalf of ICYF to every and all attendants of this event today. My sincere thanks to speakers, all our delegates, special guests, organizers, and participants present with us today. Surely we will continue to think and work for a better world and better conditions of female leadership, and we will continue to contribute to the making of a culture of understanding, respect, equality, justice, and celebration of success. Thank you all for taking your time to join us and support our young Muslim women and prospective leaders. I hope this program will lead a brighter future. Enjoy the rest of the program, and thank you for allowing me to address this special gathering. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tahai Han, for your insightful speech. Also, we were going to have the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkey, Abu Selim Kuran, among us, and I think he is still coming, but he'll be a little bit late. He's in another meeting. The virtual world, we never know when it ends. So basically, hopefully, we'll have his closing remarks during this session. So I will straight away start the summit here, and then later on we can welcome the Deputy Minister among us. So as I said, let's officially now start our summit. We will be listening to amazing women from all around the world across different sectors and cultures to engage and encourage us to understand and realize the current issues of the 21st century and contribute to young women's empowerment. Our first roundtable session commencing now is Female Leadership in a Highly Competitive World in Post-COVID Era, a side event at the ECOSOC Youth Forum. It will explore the effects of the pandemic on female leadership and what lessons have we learned, have we taken, and how can we implement what we've learned and invest for a gender equal world in the decision-making process. Well, to address these challenges, I now welcome to our virtual floor our speakers. First, let me introduce them one by one. Emina Japarova, Her Excellencies, First Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. Dr. Merve Sefakavakçı, Ambassador of the Republic of Turkey to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Her Excellencies, welcome again. Aisha Yusufu, Nigerian socio-political activist and co-convener of the Bring Back Our Girls movement. Thank you very much for joining us here on the floor. Malek El-Nimar, founder of two non-governmental organizations in Lebanon, addressing the needs of the underprivileged children, youth, women, and the elderly living in Lebanon. Thank you very much for joining us. And we would have had also Rima Sultani Rimu among us. Rima leads a mission to educate Rohingya children in refugee camps, but unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, she won't be able to join us today, but she has sent a message, so I will introduce her shortly before we hear her message. Each speaker will have about 5 minutes to address this challenge with their unique experiences over the last year. And after the speeches, we will be taking questions from our participants and have a roundtable. As I said, unfortunately, Rima Sultani Rima could not join us today due to technical difficulties, but it is important to emphasize her dedication and commitment to defend the rights of Rohingya refugees, as more than 750,000 Rohingya refugees, mostly women and children, fled Myanmar and crossed into Bangladesh after Myanmar forces launched a crackdown on the minority Muslim community in August 2017, and children are being raised without education. And unfortunately, Myanmar today is still facing violence and conflict. Rima is only 18 years old, and she has been an incredible influence in changing lives through education. She has been named one of the 100 inspiring and influential women around the world in 2020 by the BBC. So let's hear now her message.
Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. This is Rima Sultana Rimo. I am a young women leaders purpose, part of global network of women peace builders. I am from Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. I really hoped to be with you today. Unfortunately, I can't meet with you as we are in this virtual world because of pandemic. Technology can intervene, but it can't stop us from connecting. When I look around me, I see the women and girls in the Rohingya community and host community are treated as less than men and are not get the same rights and opportunities. They have faced violence. They are still facing today. When I started speaking about women's rights, some of my society and family members didn't like it. They said that I was disrespecting my religion and not behaving correctly. I didn't give up. Teaching girls and women how to read and write is one of the biggest ways I can make a difference. This year, all the problems that the Rohingya girls and women are facing in the camps much worse with the COVID-19 pandemic. Many girls have not been in school. It's been difficult to move around to do my workshop. There has been an increase in child marriage in the camps. and we have launched a campaign to raise awareness of how damaging this can be to girls. I tell people that every girl has the right to be safe. I have big plan for myself. I will fulfill my aim. Why not? Why not? I will not stop my works until every woman and girls becomes aware of their rights and can live happily and safely as equals. Thank you so much, everyone, for patiently hearing my speech. Thank you so much.
Incredible young woman. She's only 18. She's a dedicated teacher. She has taught so many Rohingya children in the refugee camps. And although the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic is here, she's still dedicated to carry on and to continue. Although some think she behaves incorrectly, let's all behave incorrectly if this means educating children. So we do want to thank from here Rima Sultan Rimi. We wish she could have been among us here today, but those are that's a beautiful, inspiring story by Rima. And one of our speakers is Aisha Yusuf. I just would like to say, could you turn your camera on? I believe it is off, so we can see you, Aisha Yusufi. But now I give the floor to Her Excellencies Emina Jafarova, who was appointed as the first Crimean Tatar woman as the Deputy Foreign Minister of Ukraine, exactly 76 years later after the forced deportation of the ethnic group. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I hope you can hear me well.
Very well, thank you.
So, Assalamu alaikum, my dear friends, dear organizers and distinguished participants, dear ladies and sisters. First of all, let me express my sincere gratitude for inviting me to speak at this event dedicated to the issue that I'm personally and professionally dedicated for. Of course, COVID-19 has become a real and true crash test for the whole world, not only in terms of the capability of states and countries to respond and resolve, but also a certain litmus paper for the whole mankind, unveiling sometimes very dramatic consequences of the interhuman relations in different societies and cultures. And of course, just a year ago, back in April 2020, the UN Secretary General, reporting on the achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals, said the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the pace of the 17 goals, including the goal number 5, which is about empowering all women and girls, will be inevitable. And we do see the consequences of this negative influence in numbers and those numbers that countries report to the United Nations, where women are unfortunately disproportionately affected. And of course, let me also speak about my country, where in Ukraine for 7 years we have been dealing with serious problems and tragedies related to the consequences of the ongoing Russian armed aggression. And I cannot but speak about this, which is of my personal pain and tragedy. According to the United Nations Refugee Agency in Ukraine, the armed aggression has turned Ukraine into the 9th largest country in the world in terms of the number of internally displaced persons. The statistics shows that displaced women are in more economically vulnerable position than men. And here's a clear example that over 60% of 1.5 million of Ukrainian IDPs who were forced to flee their homes both in Crimea and Donbass, which is in the eastern part of my country, because of the war and the occupation, are unfortunately women and girls. And I am also among those 60% as a representative of the indigenous Crimean Tatar people. And of course, as I told you, it is of my personal pain and tragedy, just as for thousands of other Crimean Tatar young women. Let me also draw your attention to the situation with the political prisoners in Crimea with regards to the topic of today's discussion. Ukrainian citizens, mostly Crimean Tatars, are detained and imprisoned in Crimea on politically motivated charges and under the pretext of anti-terrorist measures. let's say, if you dare to say that Crimea is Ukraine, you can be put in the prison, and the whole world, as we know, is consolidated towards the status of Crimea. If you have a Ukrainian passport, you can be called a spy and jailed. If you are a Crimean Tatar activist, you can be affiliated to the Crimean Tatar Milli Mejlis, which is a self-governing body of Crimean Tatar people that was banned by the decision of the Supreme Court of Russia, and thus called an extremist and put behind bars. If you practice Islam, you can be called a terrorist or a member of a Muslim terrorist organization, and consequently detained and imprisoned for 20 years. And this is exactly what we have as a reality in Crimea, something that is very hidden, I would say, because this is something that you will never have a chance to hear from the Russian officials or the Russian media. And at the same time, families of political prisoners, wives, mothers, daughters, and sons of those illegally detained have been left face to face with the need to withstand and keep on living and to earn daily bread on their own. And in some Crimean villages where Crimean Tatars live compactly, so-called women's streets appear. Many children need long-term psychological rehabilitation because of the traumas that they received during the house searches and arrests of their fathers that unfortunately take place almost every day in my homeland in Crimea. Of course, this situation demands better consolidation of international response. And in my current position as the First Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, I'm dealing with the recent initiative of my country, the Crimea Platform, that I believe should become and can become an international frame to deal with a bunch of those consequences occurred as the result of occupation. This is exactly where my personal leadership is being practiced on an everyday basis. Dear friends, of course, amidst such a challenging environment, I also want to stress that Ukraine is taking measures to consolidate the process of developing women's leadership at the state level. Ukraine has taken the course to ensure equal rights and opportunities for women and men. And at the moment, we are in the process of shaping drastically different culture related to women's leadership in politics, business, army, and so on. In 2020, we joined the Biarritz International Partnership and committed ourselves to develop barrier-free public space, committed ourselves to teach children to the principles of equality between women and men, preventing violence, which is an acute issue in many societies, reducing the pay gap between women and men, creating greater opportunities for men to care for children. And Ukraine has also become a member of the Equal Pay International Coalition called EPIC, the group of friends of women, peace and security, and the action coalitions to promote equality. Moreover, on the 20th anniversary of the adoption of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, we approved the second National Action Plan for the implementation of the document by the end of 2025. The number of Ukrainian women or women in the Ukrainian parliament and government has increased in recent years. Of course, these numbers are not ideal, and there is still a frame for better achievements. But today, 33% of women are high-ranking governmental officials, and over 21% of women serve as members of parliament. Almost 50% of all local council members are women. And of course, because we still have the war in Donbass, about 57,000 women serve in the armed forces of Ukraine, and of these, more than 900 female officers serve in command positions. And of course, I am especially proud that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine is a flagship in advancing this agenda, quality agenda. We joined the He for She initiative, conducted an audit of ensuring equal rights and opportunities in the diplomatic service. And our goal, of course, is to strengthen the leadership of women in diplomacy. Dear sisters, In my speech, I was asked to speak not only about the COVID-19 consequences for women and women's leadership as such, but also to share something that I find important to share in order to inspire you. And I've been really spent the whole evening yesterday thinking of that message that I can deliver you, or speaking about the case that I am inspired of by myself. And there is one special story about one special Crimean Tatar young woman. Her name is Fatma Ismailova. She's just 31 years old. And she devoted herself, as many other Crimean Tatar women, for care to her family, to be more precise, to be a good wife for her husband, and a perfect mother for their 3 children. But in 2016, 2 years after Crimea's occupation by Russia, her husband was detained under the pretext of terrorism, so he was called a terrorist. In a couple of years on her way to the court trial, where her husband received over 13 years of prison, the occupants stopped her car and detained her father, who suffered a heart attack at that moment. And it didn't stop the security services, and they took away her father. And as the result, Fatma's husband was imprisoned for over 13 years in the prison, but she also found out herself that her brother was detained also for 13 years. So Fatma decided to fight. She took part in different press conferences. She staged a series of one-person pickets. She made countless travels to attend the so-called trials. She does everything she can to fight for her father, husband, and brother. She also learned how to drive a car. She started baking the cakes and later opened up a flower shop to earn money to feed her children. And I think that Fatma withstood and continues her fight for her family. For me, she is a true symbol of bravery and devotion, and my personal revelation yesterday that leadership is something that we don't born with, and something that is not taken by birth and should not be taken by birth, especially in conservative societies, and I'm coming from conservative society. This is something that we acquire or learn to acquire. And I think it's crucial to understand. And I hope that those who can listen to us can also be inspired by this story. Çok sağ olunuz. Thank you.
Excellencies, Emina Japarova, First Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, thank you very much for that powerful speech there, actually. And while listening to everyone and so many people from so many women from so many different countries here, and everyone maybe has a different battle, but I do believe they all have something in common, which is fighting for our human rights, universal human rights, and also women's rights. So it's incredible to be listening to the strong life stories, as you mentioned, of Fatma's. And our third speaker now, she says, "Deaf is when you are afraid to speak the truth." That's the strong message from the Nigerian campaigner Aisha Yusufu. She's one of the founders of the Bring Back Our Girls movement, after nearly 300 schoolgirls were abducted from the Nigerian town of Chibok by the terrorist group Boko Haram 6 years ago. And Yusufu is currently one of those leading the protest in Nigeria. And I will give the floor to her to make a speech.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh to everyone. Peace upon everyone. It's such a pleasure listening to amazing women speak and men speak of their experiences and also the welcoming note that we have gotten. Before I go on, I think I'm going to give you a story of a little girl who was born and brought up in the ghetto. A little girl who was told that girls are not supposed to go to school, they're supposed to get married. A little girl who by the age of 11 didn't have any friend to play with because all her friends were all married off. A little girl who decided that the ghetto she found herself in was not going to be the end of her life, that she was going to strive and go on to explore the world out there that she read. A little girl that was told that girls are supposed to be seen and not heard, and that girls are only supposed to be in the kitchen or working in the house. A little girl that challenged everything that was out there, that said to her that she couldn't be. And this little girl wanted so much to have an education. When she was in school, at one time she didn't have books to read, but yes, she would keep begging people to give her books to write her exam. She never got those books. A little girl who would go to school in the morning without breakfast, and when she's coming back from school, she wasn't expecting lunch, but she knew that there was a world out there, and she kept reading and getting those knowledge. This little girl is no longer a little girl. I must say to you, this little girl, at the age of 24, she got married. Her friends were already grandmothers at that age. Remember, they got married before she was 11. Some of them got married as young as 8 years. And this little girl was taunted and called all sorts of names because she wanted to have education. She wanted to go to school. She wanted to be somebody. She wanted to shatter glass ceilings, even though at that time she didn't know that there were any glass ceilings. This little girl knew she had a voice, and she used that voice. And even though it got her into lots of trouble, but she kept saying her truth. And sometimes adults would be angry when the truth didn't favor them. This little girl is no longer a little girl. This little girl is 47, and this little girl is speaking to you right now. That's me. My name is Aisha Yusufu, and I am the little girl that once upon a time I was told that I could not amount to anything because of the way that I behaved. And I must say to you all that in 2014, I decided that I was going to focus on national issues. And when I did, I didn't look back. I didn't wait for anybody to give me permission to be at the table. I came with my own table, and I sat there and I spoke. And I wasn't interested whether people had seen women in hijab coming out to make demands or not. All I know was that I had a voice, and I needed to give myself permission to speak. And the little voices that were planted in our heads as little children, that we should not speak, we should only be seen and not be heard, I knew I had to squash them, and I did squash them. But before then, I did something that was very important, and that was to fight the poverty that had been born in. I was born into poverty, but I decided that wasn't going to be part of my life, and I worked hard on my financial independence. And I say to every woman out there, the first thing you need to do, as much as you're getting that education and getting your voice, is to ensure that you have that financial independence. Today, we talk about counseling culture. The counseling culture did not start today. It started with poverty. Unfortunately, when you're poor, you're faceless, nameless, and voiceless, and you're not seen as a human being. I say to people, there is nothing like gender-based violence. What you have is power-based violence. And a lot of people will use that power that they have over you and can't.
We lost your voice, Asha.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, as long as you're getting that education, you must also, as you're going on, work on that financial independence. You must have your own voice. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you're back, Aisha. It mutes itself.
Yeah, I'm
sorry.
back. Yeah, I'm having a bit of technical distance. So as much as possible, it's very important. But above all, the most important thing is that you must give yourself the permission to be. You must give yourself, hello?
Yes, we hear you. When you unmute, we hear you perfectly, so you can continue when you see it.
Well, we must give ourselves the permission to excel and the permission to be. Remember those little voices that were planted in the heads of little girls, where they were told that they cannot be leaders. They should only be seen at one place. That has to be stopped. COVID-19 has shown us that indeed women have what it takes to be the leaders in this country, in the whole world. And one of the things, I remember Dr. Obieza Kwesili would say that leadership is gender neutral. You do not need a particular gender to be in leadership position. COVID-19, we have seen the countries that have done so well, interestingly, have been countries that have been led by women. We were brought up even as little girls to know that we can multitask, we can do many things at the same time. We've always done that. When we were much younger, little girls are told that they have to take on the responsibility of everybody in the family. They have to be the one doing so many things. And then guess what? When they grow older, that leadership leadership role that they have been taught all their lives to multitask, to have empathy, to be there, to take decisions, it's suddenly they are told that they cannot be in that leadership position. So the most important thing that I would say to everyone listening now is the fact that go out there and get the knowledge that you need. Go out there and give yourself permission to excel. Don't sell yourself short. Don't lower your expectations. Don't think that, oh, you should not be who you're supposed to be so that people will not feel uncomfortable. Don't let the society tell you what you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to be, and the way you're supposed to behave. You have a place in this world that was created for you, and just for you to come and excel and make a difference. And that difference you should make. At the end of the day, it is about the positive differences that we have made in people's lives. And when we die, it is about how well we'll be remembered and for how long we'll be remembered. Like she did say, I have always said, people have said to me several times, are you not afraid of being killed when you speak out in your country and demand for justice and fight against injustice? And I always say to them, that is not when you cannot breathe in oxygen or breathe out carbon dioxide. That is when, in the face of injustice and tyranny, you are unable to speak because you are afraid to die. We must ensure that we make a positive difference in this world. And COVID-19, like I said earlier, has shown that the women have a role to play. And it is time for us to take our position and stop asking for permission, and also not to play the woman card. If it doesn't work out, don't say it's because I'm a woman. Look at it, take responsibility, learn from it, and keep going. And definitely, you'll get it right. Thank you very much.
Aisha Yusufu, thank you very much. Those are such strong and powerful words. Honestly, when I hear your energy, I want to get up and protest myself. You have an incredible voice. I have to say that. And what you said made me think about what I heard actually from a men professor at Columbia University once said, women have such high bars to go to, so such standards set for them. They have to battle to actually get there, to be at the top, to be leaders. So they exceed themselves when they do come there. And those standards actually should be set also for men. That's why every woman in that leading position is actually already exceeding themselves. They already had so many battles to go through. Well, thank you very much, Aisha Yusufu. That was beautiful. And our fourth speaker now, Her Excellency Dr. Merve Safa Kavakçı, Ambassador of the Republic of Turkey to Kuala Lumpur. She is the first woman with a headscarf to take a seat in Parliament in Turkey and has been advocating Muslim women's rights around the world. So I welcome you to the floor. If you can unmute yourself, Her Excellency.
All right. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala Rasulina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you very much for this kind invite. It's a pleasure to be among you this very midnight of Kuala Lumpur time. And I must say, I had to rush from the airport to attend this meeting willingly and lovingly, not just to sort of energize young women out there who are looking forward to hearing us all, but also be energized myself as well. I have been listening for all of your speeches. Indeed, you have collected a plethora of women who are very pregnant, very successful, and have important things to offer. I was asked to, in a way, give sort of an outlook in 5 minutes or so about my own experience and how I can see the world in this post-COVID-19 era, if you will, and how that experience comes handy. Some things have changed with COVID-19. A year ago, this time, maybe we didn't know that we'll be starting to wear masks maybe forever now. I think some things have changed, some things have not really changed. The world has started becoming smaller and smaller long before than COVID-19, but I think the pandemic has expedited the process of us coming together, if you will, sort of touching shoulder to shoulder to one another. And with that, of course, our borders have become very fluid, and our wants, our demands, and the pie of this planet that we are all coveting, the health care, the vaccines, and everything needed to be rationed. I think as Turkish Republic, we had a great job in taking this pandemic, maybe some sort of a blessing in disguise. One can sort of construe it as such, and put to work as part of the larger outlook of the Turkish Republic's foreign policy, which is very inextricable from the humanitarian part of it. So as we had started in the last 20-some years, to be exact 18 years, humanitarian foreign policy to be the main element of Turkish foreign policy. The era of the pandemic has worked just in that path to extend a helping hand to societies, to peoples, independent of their geographic demarcations, religions, cultures, races, and so forth. So we built bridges. I was very impressed with our young leader women from Bangladesh speaking on Rohingya Muslims. Turkey is another country who has raised the flag of alarm about the Rohingya Muslims a very long time ago, before the world has started looking at them. Turkey is a country where 4 million refugees are hosted, and we consider them our guests, in the way that Ansar and Muhajirin used to live together during the time of the Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Today, with the technological advancement that we have, it is in our hands to utilize these tools and gadgets that our ancestors never had in the past, in the path of promoting the good, amr bil ma'ruf, and doing nahy anil munkar, preventing from the bad. I think it's very important to be in the right camp, to be with the good, and to promote goodness in the larger society of the female leadership. And here I must say, we should not in any way limit ourselves to the discourse of feminism per se, liberalism per se, or in the larger discourse of secularism. I'm a person who had done quite a bit of sort of academic research in looking into different kinds of fundamentalisms, and found secular fundamentalism to be very pernicious, but we never talk about that secular fundamentalism in certain parts of the world. We rather talk about religious extremisms, which is something that we should be talking about, but it is also important to look into secularization and how secular fundamentalism can become an impediment to people's lives. So in this post-COVID-19 world, as women, men, young and old, we come together. It is important that we get past the differences and unite in the least common denominators. I know we can do that. We had done that as Turkish Republic, as the ambassador of Turkish Republic in Kuala Lumpur to Malaysia. I had done my part in bridging the gaps between the two countries as well. We just have to keep working.
Yes, Her Excellencies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that insightful speech. As you have emphasized about actually our global problem, it made me straight away think about also the environmental issue, because I believe since it was invisible, we weren't really connecting or globally acting as such as we are now during the COVID-19 pandemic. And maybe this, although we do have our differences as countries, as we can see, that facing now global problems, maybe we can implement them to other uses when it comes to other issues such as the environment. So a lot to take from this time. Thank you very much. And now our last speaker, let's hear from Melek El Nimer, founder of two non-governmental organizations in Lebanon, addressing the needs of the underprivileged children, youth, women, and the elderly living there. She has been widely recognized for her influential role and received many awards. She is described as education, hope, and change when they hear Melek's name. So the floor is yours, Melek.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. Our work is based on the belief that a refugee or a person from a marginalized community is not someone that lacks potential, but that they lack the means to achieve it. And our programs are all geared towards empowering children, youth, and women and making them active agents of change in their own communities. I'd like to share with you the example of a very good example of achieving what you believe in, which is our Bridge program, our scholarship program that supports students, making them better prepared for university entrance and supporting them financially and otherwise during their years at university. This whole program started almost by chance when a friend of a friend asked me if I can find her a couple of students to support in university. Did I know at the time that this will morph into a program that already has 600 graduates and is presently supporting over 300 students in university? Of course not. But what I did know and strongly believe in, and I know this like I know my name, education is the only way out of a refugee camp. And the best way to break the back of a nation, if you like, is to limit access to quality education. Although education is referred to as one of the basic human rights, Article 26 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says everyone has the right to education, and that higher education shall be equally accessible to all on the basis of merit. But unfortunately, this is not true. Our beneficiaries come from schools administered by the UN for Palestinian refugees in Lebanon. There are 68 of them across Lebanon. And if you look at the system at any given year, in grade 1, you would find around 3,000 students. And in grade 12, you will find only 1,000 students. So that says it all. And of course, the pandemic, COVID, has affected the underprivileged societies unequally. So the quality of education that was nothing to write home about to begin with has gone further down the drain because of the pandemic. I've been asked to speak, I'm told, in the hope that my story might inspire and encourage young women. All I can say is that you have to believe in what you are hoping to accomplish, and most importantly, believe in yourself. Did I face any resistance? Yeah, of course I did. At the beginning, I heard a lot of remarks from the community, things like, you know, what does this foreign woman think she's doing? She wants to take our children to American universities where they will be spoiled. What is her agenda? And now, 10 years on, the same people are trying their best to get their students to benefit from our programs, because now they have realized that the only thing that might make a difference is a degree from a reputable university. And we have the stories and the numbers to prove this. I cannot claim to have done much to empower women in particular with this program, but it's for a very good reason. Any list of excelling students that we look at, whether they're in high school or once they have been matched with our scholarship, 70% are always female. So 70% of the top students that come out of the UN school system are invariably always female. So they already come to us kind of empowered, having empowered themselves by achieving something that is quite unusual, especially knowing all the inequalities that women in our societies face at so many levels. So all they need is a little support and push from our end. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, Melek El-Nimar, thank you very much. And again, it goes back to education, as we can emphasize that, I believe, as we heard from Rima Sultani in the beginning as well, how important it is to educate others and all women and children. And the way to, I believe, to, even if it's leadership or other positions, whether which sector, I believe it doesn't really matter, but it goes through education. And since it's a platform to share, I want to share as well, saying, well, my mom didn't get to have an education. She was 15 when she got married, but she paved the way for me to receive that education and to learn 3 languages. So I guess exactly this is the point to all mothers and women out there. Thank you very much. And now I believe we do have the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs among us. His Excellencies has joined. Am I correct? Yavuz Kıran, he is here. So we can have his speech before we dive into the questions from our participants. I just want to make sure. I think he is coming. So let's give His Excellencies 1 minute or 2 before we do continue. And a lot to ponder on, really, from all the stories we have heard from all different women from around the world. I'm taking a lot today here, and it's incredible to hear them. Well, before Mr. Yavuz Selim Kıran joins us, let me ask then one question before we go to the participant questions, and then we can hear his speech and then carry on. So my question, the first one is to Emine Jafarova, Her Excellencies, actually. It's also from your speech what I have heard, but it was a general question to say how and what extent has the pandemic affected female leadership in your experience? And you have said it in your speech that for you, your leadership exceeded another level because you are doing a first. And you are the first Prime Minister woman to be there. You're fighting for your rights. So what battles are you facing yourself as you are going through this experience?
Teşekkür ederim Ayça Hanım sorunuz için. There is only one clarification that I want to get from you. Is it something that you ask in general or in times of COVID?
Actually, this is in terms of COVID, but I would like to have your unique experience as well. You can add beforehand as well.
Yeah, if to speak about my personal reflection about the women's leadership and something that we discuss, and I'm very grateful for tremendous and wonderful speeches of my sisters that I've heard from Merve Hanım, Melek Hanım, Rani, Aisha, really beautiful speeches and really inspiring speeches. I remember before I was born, my father was dreaming about having a boy. And this story had been discussed for years because he was so upset when I was born for not having a boy. And just a year ago, my father came up with the revelation. He said, Alhamdulillah, I'm very thankful to Allah that I have a girl like you. And this was probably the best compliment for me as a girl, as the one who never dreamt of having this position, actually, because I think that I'm very honest in doing what I find important to do. And I was never thinking about receiving any kind of official positions. And these words of my father was probably the best compliment I ever received, knowing that I do right job. And of course, my personal fight is directly connected to my people, Crimean Tatar people. And for the first time in the history of my country, Ukraine, Crimean Tatar young woman, Muslim woman, was appointed as the first deputy minister, and something that never was a case before 2014. So of course, in this, not only times of COVID, but also probably for my country, the most crucial is the Crimean occupation and the war in Donbass that really brought my country to this global transformation that we are going through. And position of women, position of girls and leadership of girls is something that has been directly tested within this global transformation. And I think that we received this strong impetus to find ourselves not only as mothers and wives, but also those who can push the country for better life, push the reform track. We have a super strong civil society, and the overwhelming majority of the civil society representatives are women and girls.
Well, thank you very much for your answer there, Amina Japarova. And now I believe also the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkey is among us, so I will give the floor to him. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, my sister, Her Excellency Linda Roma, dear First Deputy Minister, dear friend Emine, Ambassador Kavakçı, my dear brother Taha, dear guests. First of all, I would like to apologize for being late and sorry for my delayed participation due to an unforeseen engagement earlier. I'm very glad to join you today at this very timely and important event. I thank the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum and its president, my brother Taha, for organizing this event. COVID-19 pandemic has worsened inequalities across the world. Several restrictions that have come with the pandemic increase the burden on women. Especially women and girls in conflict zones suffer heavily as social safety networks break down. Our sisters in Syria, Palestine, Yemen, Somalia, and other regions affected by armed conflicts are in need of urgent humanitarian assistance. They are the soft targets during attacks. They are deprived of their basic rights. They lose access not only to clean water and foodstuff, but also to fundamental public services like health and education. Yet, they strive to feed their babies and keep the family together. We need women leaders to extend a helping hand to end the deprivation and suffering of women. Our First Lady, Emine Erdoğan, is a leading figure on humanitarian matters. Women in conflict zones have a special place in her heart. She led several humanitarian efforts for Gaza, Rohingya Muslims, Pakistan, and African states. Her efforts have also been internationally recognized. For her leadership in humanitarian matters, she was awarded by the World Humanitarian Forum in 2019 and the Global Donors Forum in 2018. As we provide around 26% of all humanitarian assistance in the world, we particularly focus to support women affected by armed conflicts. More than half of the beneficiaries of our humanitarian assistance programs for Syrian refugees are women. Our religion, Islam, does not accept any kind of discrimination among people. We believe that it is inhumane to close our eyes to the suffering of poor and vulnerable people. Gender, color, race, or other differences have no importance in our approach towards human beings. Therefore, it is a religious duty and moral obligation for us to ensure the well-being of women across the world. Leaving no one behind is also part of our international commitment. This is the vision of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. The role of women is particularly important in this respect. According to several studies, pandemic has a negative impact on job security for women. We must act together to improve employment opportunities. In order to do that, effective planning and political leadership are essential. I want to share with you our policies on this important issue. We improved our social benefit system with payment programs developed according to women's needs. Nearly 65% of social assistance beneficiaries are women. We also increased the capacity of women's shelters. These facilities serve to mitigate the impact of the pandemic on women. We improved our efforts by opening 71 additional women's shelters. Our commitment on zero tolerance against violence is solid and strong. National legislation of our country brought high-level standards to protect women against violence. Dear friends, in our war of independence, many women fought beside men. One of them, Halima Çavuş, wore men's clothes in order not to be rejected by the army. We owe our freedom to those brave women. In modern Turkey, the first Turkish female doctor was called Safiye Ali. She treated soldiers during the Balkan Wars and the War of Independence. She set up her first clinic in 1923 and opened the way for many women who choose to become doctors. Today, almost half of doctors in Turkey are women. We need women's contribution in all areas of life. In 2002, 4% of our members of parliament was women. Today, it is 16%. We managed to increase the share of women university students from 13% to 46% in 20 years. In our foreign ministry, 37% of our staff are women, and we have 65 women ambassadors, including Ambassador Kavakçı. Many Turkish companies have set a target to employ at least 40% women by 2025. We are working to increase further the participation of women in social, political, and economic life. Turkey also strongly supports international efforts to protect and promote women's rights. During our G20 presidency in 2015, we established W20 group to promote women's role in society. This paved the way for developing a framework within the G20 for inclusive global growth. Turkey's first action plan focusing on women's employment launched in 2016. We also led the initiative to set up a Women Advisory Council at the OIC. In 2017, the Council held its first meeting in Istanbul to activate the OIC's role in the area of women empowerment. We have recently organized an international female leadership program called Ally for Future. This program aims to establish a network for young women from 37 countries to develop their leadership skills. Our President, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, always underlines, women are the hope of humanity with their love, efforts, and sacrifices. In today's panel, I am pleased to see strong women role models who give us hope for the future. They have shown the courage to overcome inequalities and contribute global efforts to make the world a better place. We should work together to establish an environment where more women leaders will appear. This requires effective partnership among public and private sectors, as well as the NGOs. Strong engagement of international community is also extremely important. I once again thank the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum for keeping this important issue high on the international agenda. Thank you very much.
Deputy Minister, thank you very much for your valuable speech. And now, to use the time wisely, I would like to get the questions from participants, as they would like to ask many. So first of all, could our three participants who are joining us here on the video call, can they turn on their video so we can actually see them when they're asking their question? And we have received even more questions, so if the speakers could give a little short answers so we can get through as many as possible. So first question from Aksa Chowdhury to Aisha Yusufi. So Aksa will be asking to Aisha. Aksa, are you here? Could you turn on your video and unmute yourself? I believe, well, we can't hear you, Aksa, so if you can sort out your voice, we'll get to you next. Oh, yes, Aksa, now we can hear you.
Yes, my video as well.
Okay, do ask your question. I believe it is to Aisha Yusufi.
Yeah, so my question is from Ms. Aisha Yusufu, and the question is like, how to deal with the women and girls who have internalized the patriarchy and violence? You know, how can we make them realize that whatever they have internalized is not something normal? So how can we do that? And secondly, and most importantly, how can we convince women to join movements for some certain cause? How can we do that as a woman to, you know, convince the other women? Thank you.
Aisha, could you turn on your video and voice for us? And this is Aksa Chowdhury's question for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So I'll try and be as brief as I can. So first of all, the first question she talked about is how do we get women not to internalize all that has been done? It takes a whole lot. It's the conditioning. And I think the best thing that we can do is by being living examples. So when women see other women who have challenged the norm, the system, and are excelling unapologetically, it helps a lot. Beyond that also is to do a lot of talking and let them know that they have a place, they can love themselves, they can excel. They do not have to believe the little voices that were planted in their heads. That's very important. Also, in the issue of convincing it's letting people know that they have a right. They have a right to actually speak. They have a right to contribute, and that their rights and their voices are valid and they are needed, and that they are not subhuman beings. That's a part of the things that we have to keep doing. It's very difficult. But the most important, the long effort is to ensure that women are educated. The more women we have educated, the more they know that they are actually human beings, that they have a right in this world, and be unapologetic about owning their spaces and actually contributing to society. We already do that all the time. So it's just to put it in a more organized manner and know that, yes, they can, and not try to deem themselves because they were always told that they should be heard and not seen. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha and Aksa. I can tell you, convincing someone also takes body language and talking well, and Aisha could convince anybody. So if you can't speak like Aisha, you'll convince anyone. So next, we'll have Saira Sajjad from Pakistan, and her question is to Ambassador Kavakchi. Saira, can you turn on your video?
My video will be turned on by host, so please.
We have a crackling voice there, so the sound is not very well. Did you say you can't turn on your video? We can see you now, Saira. Hello, welcome. Can you just speak so we can hear you, whether we can hear you well?
Assalamu alaikum.
Yes.
My name is Sara and I'm from Pakistan. Basically, my question is from H.A. Wow. The question is, firstly, I would like to shed a light on COVID-19. During COVID-19 period, the domestic violence has been increased, and women are already seen undervalued and unpaid workforce. Even in healthcare system, women and men are not treated as the same way, and there are some critical situations for female. So my question is how can we avoid such critical situations in future pandemics? And the second question is, how do female can build their inner resilience to be the leaders?
I think both questions deserve case-by-case answer. It can differ from one place to another. Indeed, during the pandemic, we have been sort of hunkering down, and with that, of course, we had to, in a way, face some of the challenges that we otherwise would not have faced. And as a result, just overall, across the board, throughout the planet, violence against anybody, including women and children, also increased. I think it's important to go to the root cause of this and look into lack of education. And since we're talking about as members of this organization, ICYF, as members of OIC, it's important to go down to the root cause and seek refuge in our Islamic tradition and maybe relearn our religion once and for all, to help us to find that power that is very much present in our historical female leadership. When we look at the example of Khadija radiallahu anha or Aisha radiallahu anha, these are living, lively examples that we can emulate in 21st century. But lack of education prevents us from going over the centuries and picking them up and bringing them to our day. That would be very important. So at the end of the day, to fight violence, we have to fight ignorance. And we can only eliminate ignorance with knowledge. In that, we can look at the example of these great women leaders throughout the centuries that we already do have.
Well, thank you very much for that. Now, we have another question, video question from, if I'm correct, Sabrina Ashraf is next, and Aisha Yusufi, yes, that's because it's for you, the next one again. So let's hear the question from Sabrina.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Sabrina Ashraf from Jammu and Kashmir, India. Firstly, I would like to thank the organizing committee for providing me with this wonderful opportunity. So my question is for Ms. Aisha Yusufi. As we know, females are facing a wide variety of problems in a society. And because of this issue, suicidal cases are increasing tremendously. How would your organization or how would we help women who are facing mental and physical torture by in-laws who are demanding the dowry? Even though the dowry system has been banned, but still there are cases where women are forced to commit suicide because of this dowry issue. This is my first question to you, Ms. Aisha Yusufi. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. It's quite a major problem that we have with all of this societal pressure on women, and most especially different parts of the world. And you find that women are kept on certain with so much expectation. I think part of the things that need to happen is the fact that we need to begin to talk to each other. We need to allow people to understand that yes, it's okay to come out and speak, and yes, it's okay to stand against society, and yes, it's okay to say certain things aren't the way they're supposed to be, and we all must ensure that we're there for one another. In terms of mental health issues, there's a need for it to be taken seriously, for there to be more people having access to psychologists, access to therapies, and then also all of us standing and ensuring that what we think the right thing should be should actually be done. So when you know that you have a backup, you have a sister somewhere who is going to listen to you, you have a society where you're going to be listened to, it helps a lot. And so we must, as much as possible, listen to people, allow people to come out and talk, and let us not demonize anybody and bring anybody down, but let's give people an enabling environment for them to feel safe enough, for them to come out and speak, safe enough for them to challenge stereotypes, safe enough for them to know that they can have a stand, and their stand will be valid. So it's very important for us to validate other people. As much as we're validating ourselves, we must give room for people to thrive and just be themselves and be able to say, challenge society. And every one of us, we must continue to do that. And it is okay to actually challenge society. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha, for that. So I will try to go through a lot of questions that we did receive, as we don't have much time. The next one to Melek El Nimer. The question is from Fatima Al-Absi. She says, in some regions of the world, women not only suffer from the negative consequences of the spread of the COVID virus, but also suffer from the ravages of war and its psychological and material damages. My question is, how can we prepare such women for the post-COVID era? So I just want to, Melek and Imer, add there, every country, of course, has its own different battles, but in your experience, how do you go through that and prepare women? Melek, can you, are you among us?
Sorry, yeah, the short version of the question is that, how do you prepare women who've been damaged by war for post-COVID?
Or conflicts or any psychological barriers and material damage. So how do you prepare such women to the post-COVID era?
Well, I mean, in my mind, I can't relate to two because Lebanon has had 17 years of civil war. Palestinians were kicked out of their homeland more than 70 years ago, so they've lived in refugee camps that are beyond the description for generations now. So these are communities that have historically had to struggle with all kinds of problems that are a result of what has happened to them. So I mean, COVID is just one more addition to their long list of grievances. So I don't think we can really look at COVID outside the context of what, let's say, Palestinian women or Syrian women have had to live with. So I mean, I don't think anything will change for them post-COVID, actually.
But maybe I can add there, because I mean we've been talking as journalists, we keep on talking during COVID-19 pandemic how we're actually going backwards instead of forwards, especially when it comes to gender pay gaps, about violence, domestic abuse, injustice. So COVID-19 has affected women very poorly. We can say for all countries. It doesn't have to be a conflicted region. It is in European countries as well. So I guess it adds a huge new battle to it. Maybe in terms of coming out of this, Melek and Imer, what lessons have we learned to prevent it, to prevent these kind of problems to actually make us go backwards and push us forwards? Have we learned?
Well, I mean, as you must have noticed, realized from my earlier things I said, my obsession is education. So you need to educate women to be able to stand on their own feet and to speak for themselves and to stand up against anybody who is trying to violate them in any way. I really believe education is the solution to everything that the refugee women are facing with or without COVID. I mean, of course, COVID makes it worse. And like I said, it has affected underprivileged communities disproportionately. It's very different when you have a family of 10 living in one room compared to a family of 4 in a 200 square meter apartment. But the basic problems are they were there before COVID and they'll be there after COVID. So like I said, my obsession is with education. You have to educate them, to give them the strength to speak for themselves, to stand on their own feet.
I think that's a common issue that everyone has shared, and that's what I've taken from this session. Education is key to female leadership. So unfortunately, we don't have much time left. So before I wrap it up, one last question to Amina Jafarova, to you. So the question is from Fatima Zahra Bahrur. There are plenty of challenges that female leaders are currently facing in equality in that workplace. Also, they are considered as micromanagers rather than leaders that are highly expert, well-skilled and emotionally intelligent although. So how can we as crowds solve this concern and raise awareness to everyone? So the question here becomes equality. So Amina Jafarova, this one to you.
Thank you so much for your question. I will really try to be brief, taking into consideration that we don't have much time, and with due respect to the time of all of you. A year ago, my ministry, which is really, I think, one of the leading bodies in the Ukrainian government in terms of trying to bring as many women as possible to the diplomatic service and trying to implement many initiatives that is about equality of men and women, we held gender equality audit, and we actually questioned the Ukrainian diplomats, women, about different challenges that they face in their positions. And what I found out very interesting for myself, that according to the results and the analysis of this questioning, women, they tend to, let's say, if we compare men and women in their strive for the professional career growth, women, they tend to wait till they will be offered to take a position. And vice versa, we have men to fight for the positions. So I think that is also about the perception. I think it's also about the culture. And in my country, of course, the culture is that, and the general perception is that men are allowed to take leading positions. So my minister, who is a leading minister in terms of appointing women diplomats into the higher positions, and we have many ambassador women throughout the world, probably the record numbers that we have. I think that one of those instruments is actually to appoint women and to show that this is possible, because we have really wonderful results that come up from the ladies and women and girls serving in the diplomatic service.
Thank you very much. And as I said, we do have to wrap it up here. So I do apologize to all participants who have shared questions, and I didn't get to ask your questions today, to our incredible, amazing women speakers. And it was an honor to be among you today in this session. So I'd really like to thank Amina Japarova, Merve Kavakçı, Ayşe Yusufi, Melek Elnimer, and Rima Sultani Rima for joining this session today. And as I said, I take away so much to ponder on. But before we do the closing remarks, I was absolutely forgetting, before I do forget, we have the young pianist and composer, Büşra Kayıkçı, among us, who we will listen to, and she has a few words also to share. So before I make my closing remarks, let's give the floor to the beautiful and talented Büşra.
Selamünaleyküm. Hello. This is Büşra Kayıkçı. I am in Istanbul right now. This is my home studio. I am a pianist, composer, and also an interior architect. And I will be playing 2 songs for you today. I prepared a little set. And one of them is something I am very proud of and I wanted to share with you all. It's an unreleased piece. It will be released at the end of this month from a very legendary classical label called Deutsche Grammophon. And the name of the piece is called Bring the Light. And I hope this piece will bring the light to all of our lives and to all the young Muslim girls out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was all. Thank you for having me.
Well, Bushra Kayikci, what we are missing are the applauses because we're in this virtual world, but I believe the room would be full of applauding right now. It's incredible, especially so closely being able to watch your hands dancing on that piano. So thank you very much for that. It was incredible.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yes, and as I said, the time is up. So I'd just like to thank to all the guest speakers, all these amazing, incredible women who joined this session today, and the participants for joining us, and also for the team who organized and put this together. And just to remind you, this is only the first day of the Young Muslim Women's Summit hosted by the ICYPF. So do keep in touch for the next day and the third day. So for 2 days, I won't be your moderator for the next 2 days, but there are incredible moderators taking part and speakers also joining in the other sessions. So for the next couple of days, you can follow on the social media platforms to see what is happening. Facebook, it's www.facebook.com/OICYouth, Twitter.com/ICYF_official, and YouTube, it's a long name I can't pronounce, but do get in there. YouTube, you will find it online, and Instagram.com/ICYF_official. So thank you very much for also allowing me to join today in this session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.